Homeland Security Secretary Markwayne Mullin testified before the House Homeland Security Committee for more than 3 hours yesterday. He faced pointed questions from Democrats on ICE training and tactics, the ongoing protests outside an immigration detention center in New Jersey, and more.
Am I going to have to tell my children at home to carry an American passport with them when they're out in the street?
Congressman, I'm from Indian country. I'm from Indian country, and we got a lot of brown people around there, too. I'm Cherokee.
No, I'm not talking about...
We're not doing that. No, but look, it is. It's the same thing that you're saying.
Renee Good and Alex Pretty, we're not brown, oh my God. Okay?
But why
we have American citizens being arrested right now by ICE, American citizens that are actually being deported, American citizens getting roughed up. I see this every day, sir. Look,
so's my
your
ICE
officers have a badge, they have a gun, and they have federal power, sir.
Yeah.
They have to respect Americans. Forget about undocumented. Let's talk American citizens.
Let's talk about that.
What can we do to protect the rights of American citizens?
How can we protect? We can protect the rights of American citizens all day long. They don't have the right to assault my officers. They're
not. If you're driving by taking pictures of a situation, that's their First Amendment right.
Detainees complain of healthcare treatment taking up to a week or more. Do you audit or track how long it takes between complaining about a health condition and the time it takes to receive care? Yes or no?
In a state penitentiary, a 48-hour.
We're not talking about state penitentiaries, sir. You do not oversee. I'm not speaking of state penitentiaries. I'm speaking of Delaney Hall.
Our standards pass and succeed your own state penitentiary.
Okay, so as I understand it, yet again, the answer is I don't know.
Yesterday, the thing that concerned me is that you would not certify to Senator Murphy that you will follow the court orders.
What I said is
even
the exact
if
same
you
answer I gave you right now.
Sorry?
I gave him the exact same answer I gave you. We'll enforce the nation's laws. That we don't pick and choose which law we enforce. We enforce the nation's laws. But it is.
So then why is it relevant whether it's political or not?
Because we see lower benches and even upper benches that make decisions based on political reasons, not just.
So who makes that decision? You say we see it. Who decides that it's
all
political?
the time? Tell me it hasn't happened.
Joining us now, one of the lawmakers we heard there questioning Secretary Mullin, Democratic Congresswoman Ana Lilia Mejia of New Jersey. So we just saw some of your questions there to him. What did you make of the answers that you got to your questions and that your colleagues got there and over the course of the 3 hours that he was in front of you?
I mean, it was clear that he didn't want to actually answer questions or be held accountable. I had expressed in that moment that I had actually seen firsthand the conditions at both Delaney Hall and at the Elizabeth Detention Center. And what I saw was shocking. I met pregnant women who weren't getting prenatal care. I met teenagers who were desperate to finish their high school education. I met people with chronic diseases that is super clear that the administration, that these facilities are not able to ensure their well-being. People with diabetes whose medication was being denied or skipped or changed. People with heart conditions. I met an individual who didn't have teeth and wasn't provided any dental care and had been drinking Ensure as his meals for the months that he has been detained. This is inhumane. This is unjust. And I will remind people, as I tried to remind the secretary, that the people in Delaney Hall are categorized as low risk. That means that they don't have criminal records. That means that some of them had protective status or legal status until a few months ago. And then they were ripped and stolen from our streets, and some of them violently so. And then they are becoming ill in our detention facilities. This is unconscionable, and we should not continue to fund it.
And yet I did think it was striking that the secretary's reaction and answer to your question was to say, well, we're doing what state penitentiaries do. I mean, the fact that that is the comparison point that they're using, I think really says something.
Yes, absolutely. What it says is that they are ignoring due process. What it says is that they don't care that these individuals haven't actually been convicted of some crime that is punishable, not only with incarceration, but by death. Again, by subjecting people who have chronic health conditions to the denial of their medication, to the lack of medication, to inedible food, to these conditions that put their health at risk, can be a death sentence.
And what do you make then of the fact that we've focused a lot on Delaney Hall over the course of the last few weeks? What is the situation there? And in the aftermath of you and other members of Congress going and actually being able to survey and talk to people inside, has that changed anything for the better?
Look, what I know is that in order for us to have a government that is actually accountable to the American people, we need oversight and we need transparency. And members of Congress have the duty, the obligation, and the privilege to go into these federal facilities and be the eyes and ears for the American people. That is exactly what my colleagues in New Jersey and I have decided to do. Congresswoman Nellie Poe, Bonnie Watson-Coleman, LaMonica McIver, Frank Pallone, and Rob Menendez and I have made a commitment. We're going to go into Delaney Hall, to the Elizabeth Detention Center, every week as long as these conditions warrant, because we know that the American people do not want to fund chaos. We do not want to fund injustice. We do not want to kill our friends and neighbors. We do need to have the kind of immigration system that allows people to go through the process in an efficient, effective way without denying people due process and equal protection. We can do both.
We heard Congressman Correa there talking about the incidents in January when 2 American citizens were shot and killed by immigration enforcement officials on the ground in Minneapolis. That, of course, spurred Democrats to say we are not putting another cent of our approved funding into these institutions. And yet Senate Republicans are about to embark on a reconciliation process that we were just talking about that would see millions of dollars flow to ICE and border protection. I know Democrats are not likely to provide votes on that, but what should Americans know about that funding and the fact that it's going out the door anyway?
I mean, the bottom line that every American needs to be aware of is that we cannot continue to fund a despotic agency that is more beholden to one individual, a president, and an ideology than the Constitution. This isn't about just the denial of due process and equal protection and breaking our Constitution in regards to immigrants. When we lose the coverage of the integrity of our Constitution, when we deny due process to those who are eligible, which is everyone on U.S. soil, we are denying it to every American citizen. So you should be concerned. You should be against giving billions of dollars to a despotic agency that will turn its guns on the American people and then incarcerate you and treat you with inhumanity.
And I think that was one of the things that there was a hope on Capitol Hill, at least for a few weeks, that guardrails would be put in place, because it seemed like there should have been widespread agreement that something needed to change so that American citizens weren't out exercising their right to protest and being shot by immigration officials. Ultimately, those guardrails didn't manifest, and this is where we are. But I think it's important for us to remember sort of the process that got us here.
Absolutely.
There's so much more for us to talk about. We have to leave it there. Democratic Congresswoman Ana Lilia Mejia of New Jersey, thank you for coming on with us.
Thank you.